We've now got Viv Richards to talk to us a little bit about one or two of the arts of batting, and Ian Bishop down at the end of this strip here, which would normally be a net, but it's so wet and unpleasant, and I'm afraid it is drizzling a bit, so Viv hasn't put on the whites today, but you're looking resplendent in...
I thought I'm dressed for the weather.
Absolutely. Viv, we talked yesterday on the way up a little bit about your batting and the things that worked for you, and there was one thing you said stood out above anything else, that you didn't think enough people did the simple thing: watch the ball.
Yes, I've always felt that, you know, because you do have coaches every now and again when guys start having maybe a bad time. They will tell them things like, why don't you get your foot, your feet is not moving. But I've always felt that if you watch the ball properly and you watch it properly enough and carefully enough, because you've got to treat that ball, in my view, like a grenade. That is something which can explode when it gets to you. So you got to watch that as closely as possible. Keep and pay every little details to that particular ball. I think when you do that, everything else will come into place.
All right, if we set you up in your stance, you had a wonderfully relaxed stance, and you kept that head very, very still.
I think it's very important, because if you start moving around, and maybe because of the things maybe coaches tell you, like you get your feet in that position or you got to do this, sometimes you tend to lose focus of what's most important. And I feel if you can watch the ball and you watch it closely enough, everything else, your foot and everything else would basically come into place.
You also told me that, believe it or not, a man who helped you with the psychological side of the game, Rudy Webster, the two of you went into the business of batting and form when you were having a rough time, and you came out of all those sessions realising the only thing that was wrong was that you weren't watching the ball.
Yes, I think you got to pay tender, loving care. I think it's highly special that you do that. If you don't do that, you're going to lose focus of what's coming next. And if you can watch the ball closely enough, it gives you all the indication, gives you all the right movements, and everything happens automatically.
Okay, we'll have a skeleton version of you just batting stance. Ian, if I could just ask you to chuck a view to Viv that might give us an idea of the sort of body position he got
into. Take care of me now, okay.
To be over the ball.
No changes.
That's a special one.
Never lose it, do you? That was a special one. Were you all right through the leg side?
I think
you were all right.
Bread and butter stuff.
All right, let's have a look again.
Ready.
And he can do it with one hand. All right, I'm going to stop Ian there and get Ian to come and join in our conversation. What we're going to do is show you now, Viv, in your pomp, some of the strokes that you played against England at Edgbaston back in 1984 it was. And there every time we see that wonderfully relaxed stance, relaxed shoulders and still head. But there's something else that comes out of it, Viv, which was that essentially as a player you were an attacker.
I believe that too many young individuals, maybe who are batsmen, try to defend too much, especially if they're playing a guy who is revered or feared. They sometimes get themselves in such negative positions that whenever a bad ball comes along, they're never in the right position or basically in the right frame of mind to deal with that delivery. And maybe I can only give people tips on the things which I used to do, on the things which got me through. I tried to go on the attack to begin with at first, and by attacking, I felt that I was in the best position to deal with whatever delivery. And if I wasn't there, I'd look to defend.
Right, now that raises an interesting point for me, Ian. The psychology of the battle between batsman and bowler. Of all the players in the world during your time, I guess Viv was the one who most could put a psychological aspect of fear into a bowler.
That's correct. He was just so attacking, and his range of strokes was just so enormous. You would bowl what you would think was a good ball, and he would still manage to put it away somewhere. And that in itself puts pressure on the bowler immediately. If you have someone who's defending, as he just said, then you can fall into a rhythm and get your balls on spot without too much fear of it going away. But once he comes in and dominates, then you have to think about another plan.
It's interesting, actually, everybody standing around us here listening to that, because I sometimes wonder if enough of cricket is taught with attack in mind. You were talking a little bit about the Test match and the fact that Walsh and Ambrose got that exaggerated bounce, and that England were always trying to defend, and in the end, kind of your numbers up if that's the way you're going to play.
You can never defend forever. And I believe if you have occupied the crease for X a number of minutes or hours, you should have enough time and rhythm going at that stage for you to be a little bit more attacking. You're not going to hurt these guys by just defending. You've got to hurt them by scoring runs as well. And with runs on the board, That I think is the sort of thing which batsman needs to get involved with.
It's an unusual thing, this excess bounce, and it's something that the West Indians have traded on now really since Joel Garner emerged on the scene here.
Well, if you would say so. Joel was certainly the tallest, followed by Ambrose, Walsh, people like myself, Benjamins. So I think the bounce does help. You look back to the first Test match, Walsh was probably the slowest in the game, but he was the most successful, certainly because of his extra height. But not only that, his skill, I think, was the main part of it. So it's not just height, it's skill as well.
All right. Viv, if you were summing up and telling a youngster about the things you'd want him to focus on as a batsman, what would they be?
I think the most important things, I've always felt that you can become too technical with kids at times. And when you have kids at that early stage, you've got to let them enjoy the game. And if I'm having kids around, you got to hit the ball. Let them hit the ball. Let them have fun. When you start getting too technical to them, it becomes a little bit complicated. And they go home trying to say, oh, what was he speaking about a while ago? And it's soon forgotten. And I just believe that when you have kids and you have them at such early stage, you've got to let them enjoy themselves. Hitting the ball to all parts of the ground, whether they hit across it or not, that I think is important. Whatever needs to come after would be in place.
Right. Excellent. Fascinating that, you see. Enjoyment, really. Enjoyment, attack, keep the head still. Interesting. We're going to take a short break. On the way there, a look at what's happening in the National Cricket League this weekend, because Norwich Union have given a wonderful incentive for everybody to get to the matches. You can get in this weekend free.
Delivery, and also whether you think fast bowlers are losing sight, that they're there to take wickets instead of just trying to gain the title of world's fastest bowler.
Yeah, good question.
Going back to the first part, I remember when we were in South Africa in '93, they were timing, but it was on the television, so I have to go by what my teammates said. I didn't actually see it, but it was somewhere around 149, 150, but that's kilometers per hour. How much that works out to in miles, I don't know. Certainly, I think that it is important to bowl fast, but definitely more important to have control and have the skill to put the ball where you want it, and it's very difficult for both of them to go together.
Yeah, you've got to keep concentrating on that skill, not just thinking about the speed. David, you've got a question. Where's David?
What about the frustration of the game? Remember, old chap Viv was so frustrated when he once threw a bat through the window. Does he recall that one?
Yes, I can give you some explanation about that. I can remember I got leg before, and I was rather disappointed at the time where I felt maybe it was going on. But funny enough, I didn't really throw that bat at the window. I threw it in the corner. I was really cheesed off at that particular time, and I threw it in the corner, and it hit the top of the handle. And it just flew, bounced. And that was it. I had us to foot the bill as well.
Excellent. Now we've got Alana who's got a question about women's cricket, I think. Where are you, Alana?
How is women's cricket developing in the West Indies?
Oh, right, Ian. What about women's cricket in the West Indies? How are you developing that there?
Well, it is something that... No, it is developing. I think, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, there was a lot more, certainly in Trinidad where I come from, then it died off.
Because netball is a much bigger sport, isn't it, and basketball with women.
True.
Netball is very big, basketball as well, but I think there's a resurgence of cricket since we've had these Women's World Cup coming in. The West Indies Women's Cricket Association has been really trying to gather themselves and really get an affiliation with the West Indies Cricket Board. So I think it's on the rise once again, and there's some special attention being paid to it by the West Indies Cricket Board now.
Hey, I tell you, it's lovely here. The sun's coming out at Rishton. Where's Jim? Jim's got a question. Go on, Jim.
When are county captains going to realise the fallacy of containing bowling? In your county game, your run rate is 3 per over. With containing bowling, it goes up to 5 and over.
So, Duncan, what do you reckon about that?
Well, I really haven't looked at that statistic, but I think it is obviously important, though, that we find in a test-level bowlers not being able to put the ball in the zone for long enough periods. It's a problem we have got. And like I've mentioned before, I think this has come from the wickets that they play on. There seems to be a situation where you just bowl at the stumps and the wicket will do the work for you, and you don't actually have to concentrate on your line and control.
Thanks very much. Thanks for all your questions. Duncan, it's a big week for England this week. It was so disappointing at Edgbaston. You've really got to pull something out of the bag at Lord's, haven't you?
Well, I think we have to. You know, if we go 2 down, it's going to be very, very difficult. But I think we've been in the situation before on the previous tour to South Africa, and the guys bounced back magnificently after that test at the Wanderers. We came back and performed very well in the next 2 tests. And I think there's the character there to do it, and I'm sure they will. They have to do it.
And psychologically, knowing that you came back in South Africa, is that going to help on Thursday?
I'm sure it will. We've discussed it, and the guys know they've got a job to do. They've just got to make sure we go out and do it.
OK, thanks, guys.